Hey, I'm Rachael.
And I'm Amanda, and this is Beyond a Ballot.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Beyond the Ballot podcast. I'm Rachael. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, Rachael.
How's your week been?
Well, I mean, it's really good because you're sitting beside me.
I know.
We are not on different sides of the country, getting together via Zoom and the other recording platforms. We are beside each other, which makes for a really fun conversation. And also we got to spend the day kind of talking politics, which doesn't get to happen all the time.
It's true. We got to spend much more time together, which is always nice. Although I will say your city is very cold. I miss the West Coast.
It was snowstormy this week. You also did something kind of fun this week that was very political, but on the fun side.
I did. I got to go to Christmas party with Stephen Harper
and
Boris
special
Johnson.
Guest
Boris Johnson. He is the you may remember him as the flying mayor. He used to be the mayor of London. He was then the prime minister of the UK. But during the Olympics in London, he brought the media to do a press conference while he was swinging from a zip line.
Yes.
And then got caught on the zip line for many hours while
Yes.
the media watched. So I can say now, having met him in person, that checks out. Yeah, he's a fun guy. Really funny. I found there's not a lot of humor in politics, but he's got a good sense of humor and a killer haircut.
Okay, so I have to ask, when you go to the Stephen Harper hosted Christmas party, is it like, I'm just going to use the word, is it like a bunch of political hacks? Is it like longtime friends?
It sure
from
is.
The party? Yeah.
I think, like I said to you, it was like people were standing in front of me and I'm going, I haven't seen you in so long and you're in my brain somewhere, but it's been so long. And to be honest, it felt kind of like a family reunion. We were in government all together for many years, and now we're all in different roles and across the country, but it was nice to come together and see the old gang.
So
Politics
fun.
is like a family.
It really is.
And anything that you want to note from this week?
I don't think so. I think that we're super excited about today's episode.
Yes.
We have been talking for a long time about having women on who have made the sometimes incredibly difficult decision to run politically. So, obviously the name of the podcast is Beyond a Ballot. We spent a lot of time talking about engagement that has nothing to do with running.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a 3-part series about the women who run. We don't mean jogging. Bad dad
Maybe
joke.
they do jog.
Maybe they also jog. And we're going to talk to some women who have either run previously or have just made the decision to run.
Yeah. And we're interested in why women choose to run, what it takes to run, how they decide to run in the current political climate that's making it even harder to run, especially when we see online rhetoric that is especially bad against women politicians.
Yeah. And also some of the women who make the choice to run walking away from careers, having families and children to think about, making the choice to live part of the time in another city potentially. So there's a lot of factors that go into play when you make this decision, putting yourself out there in a very public way, opening yourself up to criticism, what that means for your family and the people who love you. Yeah. But this is the first. This is the first of our series.
Okay, so our first guest is a good friend of mine and somebody that I'm really excited to hear from. It's Jess Hamilton, who is a behavioral therapist for children with autism, but she ran in the 2019 election in the riding of Scarborough Rouge Park for the Green Party of Canada, and she's a mom of 2. Hi, Jess.
Hi, thanks for having me here.
We're so happy to have you.
We really are. And I met you, I think maybe a year ago, and you are a young mom of multiple children. And I remember you telling me that you had run, and I thought to myself, how the heck did she do that with young kids? And your background isn't really politics at all. And so the decision to actually put your name on a ballot is something that I'm sure you considered very strongly, and all of the impact that might have. why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are and like your life?
So I think probably to get a better perspective of why I ran, I was a therapist of children diagnosed with autism. I have subsequently entered into a different career path since, but I was a therapist of children diagnosed with autism, and in 2018, the government changed in Ontario, which impacted the field of work that I was in at the time. And so as a result of that, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I spoke to our local MPP and I said, you've got to stand up for these families. They're impacting our community. All of the things that you typically say to your MPP. Mm-hmm. And I realized that he was just a kid. He was just a young kid. And I thought, you know what, if he can do that, I have a voice and I have a lot of important things to say. And these families and children need representation. So I didn't know what party sort of aligned with me the most, but I looked into who was representing my community, and I realized that the Greens aligned with me the most from a value perspective, but also a big underscore to that is that they have no whip voting. Mm-hmm. So I thought that this was a really good opportunity for me to make an impact and stand out as a Green in a sea of red, and then red and blue, with some orange sprinkled in, obviously. But I thought it was a real opportunity to stand out and speak up for vulnerable people in my community.
And just for those listening, a whipped vote means that there's actually a person in the House of Commons called the party whip that in some cases tells the party how to vote, either one way or the other. Some parties do it, other parties don't. Some votes you have a whipped vote where everybody votes the same, and sometimes you don't.
So fascinating to me. One of the questions that we get a lot is for those who decide to run, or actually for those who decide to get involved in politics at all, how do you make the choice to figure out which party best aligns with you? And you actually, you went through this. So I mean, did you get online? Were you meeting with people? I'm curious about the process that you undertook to decide which party was the Jess party.
To be very fair, I have a large array of friends in different areas and different parties. So I had a general sense of where my values aligned. My family and my friends all represent different parties, to be perfectly honest. But most of my research came from the internet, checking out the parties and what they all stood for, really.
And Beyond a Ballot, if it would have existed.
Yes, of course, that. But also ignorance, I do have to say, ignorance is bliss. I did not understand the political realm before I got into it. It was a very steep learning curve. And I have many thoughts on it post running, but it was to my advantage. I feel like at the time, especially with my children being the age that they were, I think ignorance was bliss at that point. If I had known, then I might have thought twice about it.
Really good point, because a lot of people think they need to be in politics for years before they enter a race. And I think you're a great example of like a young person that really cared about the issues that just wanted to get involved. So you've chosen your political party. You see yourself aligned to the Greens, obviously. Then what? Do you call Elizabeth May and say, I want to be in the House with you? What do you do next?
I just reached out to my writing association, and then I was redirected to the head office, and I started the nomination paperwork. I spoke to one of their, oh my goodness, I can't remember what their title is right now, but somebody within the Green Party. I connected with them, and then I got the nomination paperwork underway. I can go further into it, but there was the person that had run previous to me in 2015 also put their name forward. So there was a little bit of a lag in my nomination being accepted because it might have been contested. But he stepped aside and joined on my team and was a wealth of information after that. So
that's a really nice situation to be in.
So you became the nominee. and you ran in the general election. Yes. And tell us about that process.
Oh my goodness. It was consuming. It was consuming. I'd like to say there was a work-life balance, but I'd have to say 6 months before that are familiar with the political scene, the Greens are working with significantly less resources, just on a blanket statement. So I really had a lot of learning to do. I accessed all of their campaigning tools and education resources. So I did probably the first month or two was just consumed with learning what the Greens stood for, what their platform was formally before their 2019 platform was released, what their vision was for the future, so that I could be comfortable going door to door and speaking on behalf of the Greens, but still keeping my values, present on the forefront of why I was running.
So talk to me about election night. Okay. How did you prepare mentally for election night? What were you feeling before you went in? What did you decide to wear? What were your children wearing? Like, what goes into that whole process? Because I and Amanda, I'm sure, like, we've both been there on election nights, but on the political staffer side. So as the candidate, what do you think about?
Ignorance, truly. I mean, knowing now the way the political system works, I was very optimistic when I went in to election night. I had a full election party planned. I had my daughter, who was a year and a half at the time.
Oh my God.
No, 2 years old at the time. I had her in a little Power Green shirt, and they went to the voting booth with me. It was a very cool and surreal experience in that regard. And then left my kids at home, went with my family to the pub that we were having our election night party. And I expected to see my face on the television. I expected to be one of those top 3 candidates truly winning. Thought I was going to be some outstanding winner of the evening, but not the case. I came forth and I was truly devastated. I was devastated. Yeah.
How did you go in, curious, not knowing that could be the potential outcome, or why so optimistic? Like, I love the optimism, but I'm curious about does your team not tell you, listen, we've taken a look at some polls and it's not looking good?
Yeah, they did warn me. They said
did. You were still optimistic.
That's my gosh.
I love that.
Like, this blind faith in myself. I was just like, you know what? The neighborhood's going to rally. It's going to be great. They're going to see me and choose me over the party. That's what I was thinking. And, at the door, I was received very, very well. Again, a very immature campaign in hindsight. I mean, not in effort or resources. We had a full campaign. We ran a full campaign, but at the door, people were very receptive. It was a really politically, people didn't know, they weren't pleased with the Liberals, and they didn't necessarily want to go back to a conservative government. So I was up in the air. I was a viable option as far as I could tell. And I don't know if people just didn't want to break it to me at the door that it wasn't going to happen. But I really did. I really went in thinking, this is going to be a solid finish for me. This is going to be the next chapter of life. And it wasn't.
So talk us through that. You're standing in this pub and you think you're about to have a huge celebration. And when was the moment that you realized that you had lost? And what did it feel like? And who were you thinking about?
Oh, I was just thinking about myself. I was thinking about myself and how much I had put into, how much I had invested personally and emotionally into the venture. I knew pretty early, as soon as like the polls closed, they can count the ballots pretty quickly. So I knew pretty early within the evening. I was waiting for, I was expecting at least a third place. I thought definitely ahead of the NDP, and it was just not. It was not happening. It was a solid 4th place finish, consistent with the rest of the country. I grew the vote in my riding, which I felt proud of. So there was things that I was trying to take away wins. But I really did try to keep a face on. All of my volunteers and staff were there, and I just tried to enjoy the rest of the night and appreciate all the work that they contributed with me. It was a team effort, and I think I might have been the only one that really didn't know what the outcome was going to be, but either way, I was there with people, and we survived. I'm still here.
You're still here. A curious question I have is around, I think people really wonder about the idea of like choosing the party, right? Mm-hmm. Because your values align, or choosing the party who's most likely to win. Mm-hmm. If you were to go back and do it again, would you have made a different party choice in order to get into the House? Or would you still have made the same party choice knowing that the outcome would be the same?
You literally just read my mind. That's what I was thinking too.
If I could go back, so this is the thing. Life is just truly a journey. I would not change the party that I ran for. The Green Party in 2019 was definitely still the party that represented me best and my values. And I felt strongest going forward in that for myself. And then it opened up a whole bunch of doors afterwards. So, although I didn't win that evening, it took me on a journey, and it opened up a lot of doors. I was a part of Annemie Paul's leadership campaign, and then I was brought into her leadership office. And although a devastating experience altogether, I learned a lot, and I met the most beautiful people in the process. So I have no regrets, and I wouldn't change who I ran with or ran for, because it just leads me to meet more people that are like-minded and gives me hope for the future still.
That's so nice. That's such a lovely way to end.
But I have to ask the question.
Okay.
Will you run again?
Oh, good one.
I was just at an event last week, the Pearson Institute Awards. I was just at those last week, and they had a speaker, a firefighter who was there. And she said, sometimes leadership comes to you. So yes, I would run again, but it really does have to be in the right circumstances. Because I have so much more insight now and more knowledge going into the political realm, I would run again, but it would have to be a particular circumstance for me to put that effort and emotion into it again.
I think it's very uplifting for me to hear that, because I think that, for those who have not been involved in a political campaign, it's a tremendous amount of work, effort, energy, brain power, sacrifice, time away from your kids, all the things to have gone through all that, to not get the outcome you want. But you clearly have a truly positive perspective on the experience, but also open to the idea of putting yourself back out there again. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I do want to add one more thing about the child sort of work-life balance.
Please.
Know about that.
That
Tell
component.
us that.
I just do want to add for your listeners that yes, it was very consuming. I did not see my children or get to experience them in the way that I would have liked to in that 6-month period. And for others, it will be longer and shorter for others. But I think it's just so important to model who you are to your children, so your children can learn to grow to be exactly who they're going to be. So they are a part of my life. They are not my life. And I think that it's important for them to see that their mom can be an independent person as well and follow their own dreams. So I do want your listeners to take that away, that not to be deterred, that you're going to miss your children, because life comes in ebbs and flows, and there's going to be lots of time to catch up on a different period. So
well said.
I just got goosebumps.
Me too. Also, I need to say I'm a liberal, but Canada needs more Jessicas. So I hope that we do see your name on the ballot again.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you. We hope that you'll be back on again to share some of those insights. And we're excited for our listeners to talk to more women who have run.
We'll be right back with our next guest.
Hi, welcome back. We're so excited to continue our series of women who run today. Also, truly delighted to have Leslie Church join us. Leslie is running for the Liberal nomination in the riding of St. Paul's in Toronto. She is educated as a lawyer, was the former and most recently chief of staff to the Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, after serving various roles for other cabinet ministers. Welcome, Leslie.
Hi, Amanda. It's a pleasure to be here. Hi, Rachel.
Hello.
We're so excited to have you and to continue our conversation that we've been having with women who either make the decision to run or who have run previously. We'd love to start out by you telling our listeners a little bit about yourself and what got you to this place to consider putting your name on the ballot.
Amazing. Thank you. And thanks for having me here today. It's a real pleasure to join you on this pod. And a big part of actually why I'm running has to do with, I think, exactly what you're trying to do, which is get more women, get more people across Canada engaged in politics and understanding how government works and the impact that it really can have on people's lives. So thank you for that. A little bit about me. Well, look, I'm a mom of 3 great kids, all in elementary school, ages 5, 7, and 9. Mm-hmm. I'm a lawyer by background. I've worked in the private sector. I've worked in the public sector. For the last number of years, I've had the real pleasure of working in the Trudeau government with some spectacular women ministers, Chrystia Freeland, Anita Anand, Melanie Joly, Mariam Monsef. And right now I'm running to be a candidate in Toronto St. Paul's, a neighborhood, a community that I love, that I've lived in, that I got married in and started our family in. And it's, a drive for public service to come back and to do that, I think is, part of what I'm trying to do. So I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be talking to people about the importance of government and the ways that we can actually work together to build this community, the city, and ultimately our country and make it better.
Okay, so speaking of Chrystia Freeland, my daughter was born on the day that she first presented a budget. So the day that the first woman finance minister presented a budget in the House of Commons. And so it's a very special day for me. I want you to, can you reflect on what it was like to work for the first female finance minister in Canada's history after so long?
It was unbelievable. And I really will treasure that experience. It's a career highlight for me. And I'll tell you, I remember walking into the finance building every day that I was there. And there is this row of photos. They're all in black and white. And they are all the finance ministers dating back to Confederation. And they have one thing in common. They are all men. And I used to be so proud walking in there with her and thinking about the day, not yet, no, hopefully not soon, where, when she has finally done this role, where we get to put her photo up on that wall in, I hope it's in a big, bold splash of color, that she's there doing it. And, representation matters. And I have really believed in that ever since 2015. And the Prime Minister said, because it's 2015, we're going to have a gender balanced cabinet. And I think about the work, that Chrystia in particular has done, on something very specific, like early learning and childcare. We would not have a Canada-wide system of early learning and childcare in this country if we didn't have a female finance minister who said this needs to be done, and who took a look around at the pandemic, at the way that families and women, parents were struggling, and said, we got to do this. And let's bring people together. Let's build the coalition that is actually going to get this done and deliver it for women. And, that to me is just, the number one case in point of why it matters to have women's voices at the table.
Okay, so I have to ask, when did you make the decision to run? How did you arrive at the decision to move from roles that you were really successful in, deciding to take that leap and put your name on the ballot?
in all honesty, it's something that I've hoped to do, and that when I was younger, I sort of thought I would do at some point in my life if I had the opportunity, and once I had the chance to build a career and build a family. And, when Carolyn Bennett made her announcement this summer that she was retiring from a seat that she's held here for 26 years, she was formative in my early days as a young liberal. Like, she has been here that whole time that I've been a part of this party, blazing a trail. And, I just thought, wow, this is the right moment, to come back to, a community that I'm a part of, that I believe in, that I want to shape, hopefully to carry on a legacy, of a tremendous woman who, there aren't actually many of them, like, across Canada. And I've got 2 young girls, and I just think, you can either kind of sit out, or you can step up. And for me, it's about stepping up and saying, I've got a really unique set of experiences about how government works that I think are useful to thinking about how we're going to actually solve some of the big problems of the day. So I just felt like, you know what? I believe so much in what we're doing. I'm ready to actually give back even more. And so put me in, coach. It's kind of putting up your hand and saying, it's the moment. I'm going to do it. We'll see how it goes, right? I don't take it for granted, but I would regret not trying, right? I would regret not doing that and saying, like, look, I have more to give, and I want to give it. And if I'm given the chance, I will serve.
So you've been working in politics for quite a while, and you have a background in different fields. You have younger children, not as young as mine, but young. Why now? The tone of politics we've seen change pretty drastically in the last few years. And the Liberals have been in government for a very long time, the average lifespan of Canadian governments. Why is now your time to run?
I mean, that's partly why, right there, is because that tone has changed. And I actually believe that is doing a disservice to the country and to how Canadians, how young people look at politics and government, right? Why do you want to be a part of that? Why do you want to be a part of something that is so fraught and divisive? And I just think it is the time to get in there, like no time like the present, to get in there and try and change it and try and do it a bit differently. And I think if we don't have a critical mass of people stepping up and saying, you know what, we do need to do this a bit differently, we're never going to get there. And so I feel a little bit like the time is now. And, it's a bit of a funny story, but, I met Pierre Poliver for the first time when we were both in university. I grew up in Alberta. I went to the University of Alberta for my undergrad. He was at the University of Calgary. We actually crossed paths in, the types of things that, that students do in model parliaments and that sort of thing. And, I just thought, look, if this is the moment when, people in my generation are stepping up to lead, stepping up to craft politics, craft a country in the way that they see it, then, even if it's difficult, even if it's challenging, I should try. And if I can help other people break through and get engaged in politics, take up the mantle, fight for what they believe in, help us solve these big problems that are ahead of us, whether it's climate change or whether it's housing, whatever you're passionate about. But if we can get that energy into politics and use it in a way that actually channels it for good rather than pulling people apart, then I think it's worth it. And frankly, that's the kind of legacy that I've poured myself into in government, working on a lot of the things I believe in. And, I want to protect that. I want to enhance it. I want to leave it for my kids and yours.
Speaking of kids, one of the things we hear a lot of moms who listen to the podcast, and they're curious, how do you make the decision with young children to run? It requires you, if you're successful, to be in Ottawa to split your time between two cities, potentially to travel. How do you consider this really demanding position at a time in your life when your kids are small and they have their own demands?
But just to interject there, being a chief of staff also is a
That's
very
true.
high demand job. So how have you done it?
Yeah, I was going to say, look, my kids are wonderful. They are the most important things, most important piece of my life. And it is tricky at times. I don't even like the word balance. It's not even really a balance. You kind of feel like, you're spinning plates.
No.
And it's, but I think that there's a couple things that are really important. One is, I have a wonderful partner in this who is incredibly supportive, and he and I have a tremendous partnership in terms of our family and our kids, and I really don't take that for granted for a minute. I do live a professional life, and I think actually for a lot of women, it doesn't matter what you do. The challenges of modern life are just, it is hard to balance work and family and childcare and a pocketbook. And, it can be done. So a lot of the advice that I give to young people that I mentor is just, you got to just push through. And you've got to find a way.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy. And, if there's one thing again that kind of pushes me into politics, it's the sense that, there are ways that we can make it a little bit easier. We can actually help make childcare a bit more affordable. We can ensure that families have access to a Canada Child benefit. There are things that can be done to help, but it is tricky. And I just hope that at the end of the day, my kids know that their mom is working hard in some ways right for them, right? So that they have great healthcare and great education and the things that will benefit them, and hopefully one day their kids too. Clean air, clean water. So it's tricky, but I think every family, every woman goes through this in their own way, and you shouldn't be scared by it. I try to be fearless and just push through.
Well said.
I wanted to touch on fearlessness and ask you about the nomination process, because a big deterrent for a lot of women in putting their name on a ballot is that nomination. So in a nomination race, you're vying for the seat to be the candidate, and you're running against people from your own party, from your own political family. So how do you push through that and have that fearless attitude when it comes to running for a nomination?
Yeah, look, I think it's tricky, and I'm just at the beginning of this too. So, let's talk in a few months. But I can see even at the outset, how those barriers would exist. And there was a great gathering the other night of Equal Voice, right? Who is a national organization fighting for equal representation of women in politics, and these conversations were happening. And I was saying, you can see the barriers, and I feel like, as somebody who has been in politics and who has known the Liberal Party for decades now, it's tricky enough even for me to step in to find that right moment to do it. I can't imagine if you were coming from outside of that. And so I do feel like there's barriers here that we need to address in the political system. I think that there have been steps in the right direction. I think that parties are more aware now about the number of women candidates that they are recruiting, and candidates of diverse backgrounds, to the point where, riding associations actually have to go out and, demonstrate that they've sought out candidates from diverse backgrounds. But it's still a process that is, it is solitary, building a team around you, finding the funds to actually to run a nomination, to do it without the kind of backing of the party that you get when you're actually in an election cycle, when the party is out there kind of working with you. It is different in doing a nomination, but it's also very rewarding. And sometimes, things that are hard, you just need to do the hard things. And, I love knocking on doors. I love talking to people about what matters to them and hearing that. And so if that drives you, then it's also energizing. And I wouldn't want to minimize that point either, that, it can be tough. There's good days, there's bad days, but, the energy that you get from actually, working with, people in your neighborhood, seniors, students, and hearing from them and thinking about, gosh, how are all the different ways that I can help you and make our community just a little bit better? That's really rewarding. That's what drives you.
Well, there's going to be a lot of door knocking and meeting and conversations in your future. I really hope that you'll consider coming back on the podcast in a couple of months to tell us more about the journey. I think Canada would be well served by you on the ballot. So we're just so thankful that you came on today and shared so many insights. We know that our listeners are going to love this interview, and we wish you all the best with the nomination. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much to both of you. It's a real pleasure.